Welcome to Talk Music Talk. I'm your host, Boice. Talk Music Talk is a podcast about music where I will be discussing with authors, musicians, journalists, whatnot. Long as it is connected with music, I will discuss it. And my goal is to feature music from all different genres because I pretty much love all music. On today's episode, I am in conversation with indie artist Eric Himan. We talk about what it's like to be an indie artist, touring. We also talk about him opening up for Ani DiFranco, which is pretty exciting. Also, he is an out indie artist. He's a gay out indie artist, and he talks about that, which has its own unique challenges. After the interview, stick around for Coda for some last-minute information. And here is my interview with Eric Himan. So I guess the first thing I'm going to ask you is about life on the road. So I know you talked about that you're going to be taking a break from it. I have not had the chance to tour like you have, but what is it like on the road?
What's it like? There's great aspects to it. Sometimes it's really fun because you get to see your friends and you get to meet new people and you get to go to new places and there's that element and try different things. Mm-hmm. But it's also kind of, sad because it can pull you away from being at home, depending on what your home situation's like.
Yeah.
I just got married, so it gets harder and harder the older I get to leave as I make more of a foundation somewhere, and that somewhere is Broken Arrow, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
So I don't know. So that's kind of where I'm at with the whole thing, and that's why I decided to take a seat back from it. Still putting out records, but just, I don't know, giving people some time to miss me before I come back.
So how long have you been touring now?
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Solidly for the last 13 years.
Okay.
Just been getting in my car and driving, and people are like, when's this tour over? And I'm like, well, I guess it really never is over.
Mm-hmm.
It's like what I do for a living.
Yeah.
Nobody pays me to stay at home, so I have to drive around and go to where other people are at.
Yeah. So how does that start back from when you were in college? Is that when you first started?
Yeah, I went to Penn State, and I started touring from there, going a little further out and further out till I was all the way in California. Mm-hmm. And, I just kind of grew, and I went with it, and yeah.
Was that always how you imagined it, or what were the immediate goals?
There are things that happen that I think are cool, that I imagine, like getting to meet new people and getting to meet my idols and getting to meet, people in that nature, getting to play on stages where there's been big moments, mm-hmm. Getting to reach people in a different, cool way. Those are things you always imagine, but you never know what will happen.
Yeah.
And then there's moments, where your car breaks down or you get a flat tire or, people don't show up and the owner's staring at you. Mm-hmm. Then there's those moments that are like, I never imagined this and I didn't expect this, so dang it.
Yeah. So how did that start? Was that when you met Cassandra, was it when you met her in college?
Yes, I met Cass when I was in college.
Yeah. And Cass was your old former manager, right?
Yeah, she is. But she, in a way, she's always been there. Mm-hmm. Just not formally.
Yeah.
For a while formally, but then she had other projects and things going on. But now we're working back together, so it's been really fun.
So how did that
nobody
start?
Gets you like your best friend.
Yeah.
Huh?
How did that start? Your relationship with her?
That started with her working for Penn State and us just meeting, and she said, hey, do you want to play in the Commons? And I was like, yeah, and then it just grew from there. Mm-hmm. Just starting out as this, freshman in college, and then we just became friends, and it just kind of grew from there till I was playing, all over the country.
Yeah. So was it, did you guys have a game plan, or was it just you were playing at Penn State, doing in the Commons, and then, when do you guys, was it sit down and say, hey, let's do this?
Well, there were moments of game plans, But for the most part, you know, she would say to me, what do you want to do? And I said, I just want to play for people. You know, I didn't have this big, elaborate plan, which was probably hard for her because I didn't have a plan.
Yeah.
I just said, I just want to play. So I played, and I played all over and, you know, up into Canada and, you know, just kept at it. And, you know, I'm still playing.
Yeah. Did she have a plan for you?
Right?
Yeah. Did she have a plan for you?
Did she have a plan? Yeah. I don't know if she had a specific plan. I think it was just about getting people to hear my music. I think that was the plan. It's just to, you know, write music and have people show up and it grow from there and try to get everyone to share it. And, you know, but that was a different time, though, when there wasn't social media the way that it is now.
Yeah, so explain it. Yeah, so
get people
how
to
did
share it
people
when
do
you
that?
couldn't share it.
Yeah. So how was that different from what year would that have been? Because I met you in 2005.
This was like 2003, 2005.
Yeah. Yeah. So how was that different?
It was like, well, there was like MySpace, and that kind of was not like how Facebook is now. It served musicians very well because it gave you a place to put your music. It gave people a place to go. It gave you a website, whether you had one or not. You know, there was just a lot of cool elements to it, but then it kind of, you know, like anything, kind of fizzled. Everybody went to Facebook, and Facebook is almost the opposite, where it doesn't really provide a lot of stuff for musicians, and, you know, less and less people see what you do, and they don't want you messing with people's privacy settings, so sometimes they don't even see your messages that say, hey, I'm playing here or doing this.
Yeah.
So, you know, it gets harder and harder through the saturation of everybody having a band page and everybody doing it, you know, no matter how much they have done it. It just gets so oversaturated that your message gets harder to put out there.
So how do you stay, I don't know if motivated is the right word, but how do you keep going through that? You know, not keep going through it, but how do you maintain? I don't know, because
every time every time I get to a point where I'm like, I don't know if I want to continue to do this, something really cool will happen or somebody will say something that makes it all meaningful again. Someone will come up to me and say, you know, your music gets me through this, or, you know, I relate to you in this way, and or thank you for singing about Malala, or thank you for, I don't know, or, you know, somebody want to work with me that I always wanted to work with, or I get an opportunity to play with somebody I never dreamed of playing with.
Like Ani DiFranco.
Motivated.
Yeah.
Yes, like Ani DiFranco.
Yes. And let's see. So talk about that relationship. So, because she went through, I guess, a lot of what you went through at some point. Did you guys talk about that when you interviewed her? Did that come up?
I talk about what?
Did she ever give you like, okay, well, here's how you can stay motivated. Here's how you keep going through that?
Not so direct. Not like, I'm telling this to you, my son.
Yeah.
You know, not like.
And you curled up
like
at her
that,
knee.
But,
her knee.
Yeah, exactly. No, but she's been really cool to me and very, you know, she treats me like a peer. She doesn't treat me like she's a superstar, and that to me makes me feel like amazing, because there's a lot of other artists who are like, you know, they have to pee on you, or they have to show some kind of dominance or superiority, and she's just not like that, you know, so that was neat. You know, then I played with her on Sunday, and, you know, she was, after I played, she was telling me, like, yeah, I really like this song or that song, or, you know, or she's up on stage and she says, like, you know, Eric always brings the spirit.
Oh, right, okay.
And she just talks about me, like, lovingly. You know, and it's just something that it's like, wow, like, if the one person who got me into this and influenced me to be my own, to put my voice out there, and she believes in me, you know, like, that's very motivating.
That's great. So, for the road, do you think you'll miss the road, or, like, what do you give me big plans?
I think there'll be things I miss about it. I get to see a lot of people that not everybody, like, how often does everyone get a chance to just go around the country and say hi to all their friends.
Yeah, very few.
And then stay with them and go out to eat. And I think, and as I've done this so much more, I've made more friends. I think I'll miss that. I'll miss, just being able to move and being able to go eat at different spots around the country I like to go to, or, but at the same time, I'll really enjoy being at home because I seem to miss a lot of events in my life and my family's life. But then I've always been gone.
Yeah. So what is your traveling like? You just drive or?
Yep. Well, I fly as well, but most of the time I just drive. It's just easier that way and cost effective.
Mm-hmm. Does it get lonely on the road? Because I always imagine that you have the part where you're performing for people and you're making connections, but then, at the hotel or driving back, you're by yourself.
It feels because it's such a pendulum, because you're around so many people and everybody wants your attention, and and it's loud and chaotic, and then all of a sudden you're in a room at night, alone. It's just sometimes it can just feel kind of jarring.
Yeah. How do you deal with that?
How do I deal with it?
Yeah.
Well, I spend a lot of time on the phone calling my friends, calling my husband. Just making sure. That I check in and know that somebody's on the other line when I do need someone like that. I don't know. Just, I watch a lot of TV. I listen to a lot of comedy CDs, which I have to say that always makes me feel a little less lonely.
Yeah, who do you like?
Because it's somebody's voice talking to you instead of just music.
Who do you like? Who are your comedy go-tos?
Oh, gosh. I love, Maria Bamford, Jim Gaffigan, Whitney Cummings, Amy Schumer.
Oh, I love Amy Schumer. Yeah.
Tig Notaro. Those. From David. What's his name?
David
from
Cross?
Arrested Development.
Yep. Yeah, Cross.
David Cross.
Yeah.
Jeannie Garofalo. A lot of Kathy Griffin, a lot of storyteller, comedians.
Cool. So when you're not going to give up the music, which is good. Well, do you write when you're on the road? Do you get a chance to?
I write bits, not a lot of full songs, just a lot of pieces of things. But, when I write more when I know I have something to write for.
Mm-hmm. Like specifically like an album? Or...
Yeah. Or somebody a wedding or this or that.
Okay.
Yeah, I need some kind of purpose sometimes, because unless I'm going through something that I feel that's fulfilling some kind of outlet.
Mm-hmm. So if you're putting together the hypothetical album, is it songs you collected over that past year, or there's a theme you want to explore for the album, or is it more disparate?
It can be anything. It can be a mixture of both. It could be, figuring out if something old works anymore, or if, everything should be new. Like ideas of things that I want to put out mixed in with things that have just happened. Mm-hmm. Creative writing. As I get older, when it's not your first album and it's not your collected works of your childhood up till now, it becomes, you're just trying not to repeat yourself. You're trying to keep it new and fresh, and hopefully your audience.
Yeah.
If you have an audience.
What do you see as some of the themes you keep there, like a thread throughout your career?
What do I keep?
What are some of the themes that you write about, or that you see as a continuing thread throughout your career? Like
just the people that I meet, the people that I'm inspired by. I wrote a song called Little Boy Blue about transgendered boy I met on the road. I wrote Malala because I heard her story and researched and was just so inspired. I wrote Gracefully for my grandma who passed away. I wrote What I Can Give to my mother-in-law before she passed away. I think just people in my life. I wrote everything to you about my husband. You know, yeah. I focus a lot on those around me and those that inspire me, you know, and people who tell me stories and they don't have that outlet, yeah. So maybe I can provide that outlet for them and sing about them. You know, just a struggle, you know, the only way is a song about, you know, do I continue? You know, what is this the only way?
Continue.
Are there other things that I could be doing?
Okay.
Huh?
You mean in terms of music, if you continue music?
Yeah, in terms of music, because I feel like when you've made so many albums and you've done so many things, I mean, even on my little level, you know, I feel this sense of, you know, people will always be like, why aren't, you know, don't you want to be Beyonce?
Yeah.
Like, don't you want to be that big? And that's never really, I want the job security of being big, but I don't think I've never strived to be, like, I'll do whatever it takes to be famous, okay. Because I just don't, that's just not what motivates me. Yeah. Like, people's attention doesn't motivate me.
So what else do you think you would do if you weren't doing the music, or is there any, would it be the cooking, or is that something? Or? Just
cooking, or comedy, or, you know, or just something that involves networking with people, which I love to do, and providing, you know, whether it's food, whether it's entertainment, or, you know, whether it's something that I find fun, mm-hmm. to connect with people who would also find that necessary.
Okay. So do you enjoy I can see how the road would be hard. Do you enjoy the actual songwriting process and the creation of music?
Oh, I love it. It's so challenging, and sometimes it's very mathematical. You know, so I love elements of it like that.
Mm-hmm. What do you mean mathematical? Like?
Just like songwriting is a balance. You know, it's a balance between, I would say, for me personally, you know, if you have a very wordy chorus, mm-hmm. you don't have a very wordy verse.
Okay.
You know, if you have, you know, a lot of complicatedness in one section, to even it out, you make something very simple. Mm-hmm. If you have a very harsh message that's very pushing, you don't try to jumble it with a bunch of chaos.
Okay.
You know, like, that's just me. You know, I enjoy the ebb and flow of what it takes to get a song, not necessarily out of me, but across me to others.
Okay.
Because, you know, sometimes what I think would be like, yeah, I've said it, you know, in this way. I have to think, how are people going to hear it? Because otherwise, why would I even be bothering?
Yeah. And when did you learn that in songwriting? Was that in...
I've learned that through the years, you know, through just trial and error, through, you know, the first album was like me just pushing it out of me, probably up until the third. And then, like, around the fourth, I thought, you know, now I'm getting feedback. Like, around Dark Horse, I was like, now it's not just me yelling, it's a conversation.
Okay. So can you listen to the earlier songs, or is it...
Sometimes, no. Some of them, but not all of them.
Do you still perform?
There's a ton of them that I'm like,
yeah. You still perform the earlier songs regularly, or?
I'm trying to actively do that more, but I have to say, like, it's hard, you know, because it brings some nostalgia to somebody else, and their nostalgia to a song might not necessarily be my nostalgia to a song.
Okay.
You know, or it may bring, you know, things I don't want to talk about anymore. It's just to somebody who just went through something that I went through 10 years ago.
Yeah. So you talked about... I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm saying it's not their fault they're asking for it. It's just they don't know what it means to me.
So you talked about the writing songs for your grandmother and Malala. How is that different from writing songs that are more personal, that are about you?
how is it different?
Yeah, what is the process or...
I feel like it's easier to be objective about somebody else than it is sometimes to be objective about yourself. You know, it's easier to say something and then be like, did you understand what I was saying?
Yeah.
Understand where I'm at? Than telling somebody else's story a little bit, you know, or my version of it. Because I was actually afraid of telling Malala's story in Waiting for Thunder because I thought, you know, am I missing pieces? Am I doing her justice? You know, do I have a right to talk about somebody I don't know?
Yeah.
You know, and then I just thought to myself, well, I'm just telling my version of how she affected me.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's like, I'm still in it.
Yeah. So what was her effect on you? Because I imagine a lot of people affect you, but you don't write a song about everybody that affects you. What was it specifically about her that you made you want to write a song?
That there's so much fear and intimidation on women in that culture, in the Muslim culture, and you know, in the Swat Valley of Pakistan, you know, and how women are supposed to be treated and how women are supposed to act. And then there's this young girl who sees the damage of that and who just wants an education and doesn't see it as I'm going to make a lot of money or the things that some of us look at education for. Like, what does it bring? You know, just education in itself is the gift, you know, and not everybody is given an education. And in this country, every time a school would go up, you know, the Taliban would bomb it.
Yeah.
You know, and these schools were specifically for girls, and they were just, you know, the school, they blow up the school, and it's like, oh, okay, girls can't learn.
Yeah.
It's just all these girls, like, actively sneaking out of their houses to go to these places and risking their lives to learn. You know, it's just a very different way of life than we have here, that we're fortunate to have here. And, you know, I just think somebody who says, you know what, I know that they want to kill me. I know that this isn't what they want for me, and I know they have all the power, but I don't care.
Yeah.
You know, there's a line from Ani, another person is like, she has some line where she says, I got better things to do than survive. Mm-hmm. You know, that always hit me. And when I remember when I was younger and I heard that, I'm like, what the hell does that mean? All you have to do is survive.
Yeah.
You know, I was like, that's stupid. Like, what is that?
Yeah.
And then as I got older, I was like, oh, my God, I'm stupid. Because I've been stupid because sometimes the message you have and the gift of your words isn't about you and your, you know, instead of being afraid, like, I'm not going to speak because I don't want to die, you know, and sometimes thinking, you know what, the message is so much more important than my life, you know, that if I can get this message throughout, it lives beyond me. You know, I just think, to me, that kind of tribute, you know, to the message is so valuable and important that, like, how could you not be inspired by somebody who's willing to do anything they can, including, like, beyond themselves for something to help everyone. Yeah.
So what can...
You know, and there's a flip side of that, which is all the suicide bombers who are like, who think that they're doing that same thing when in all actuality they're just killing more people.
So how did you, the process, sort of like social justice, was that something you were early in your career you came upon, or like how did that come about?
I think I've always had it in me, you know, like I never came out in music because I was always out, and I never, you know, I've always wanted to use my voice to talk about the struggle of, you know, the things I faced being gay, the things I faced being Jewish, just being different, and the things that I see, you know, transgender friends of mine who I've experienced, who have had discrimination, my presence, and, you know, and again, women, you know, which, you know, we're still fighting for the rights of women when they're half the population, and they've been around the longest, you know, in terms of rights, you know. Like, we're just now getting rights as gay people, but as women, you would think that this has been through history, you know.
And what has been the response for the song, for Waiting for Thunder?
Oh, I mean, it's been overwhelming. I opened up for Leon Russell in Maine, and it wasn't necessarily my crowd, a much older crowd, you know, from Leon's days of, you know, heydays. And I played that song, and it was a standing ovation, you know,
that's great.
because it was, and I didn't look at it like, oh, this is a standing ovation. I just looked at it as like, this has nothing to do with me. This is for Malala.
That people connected.
You know, she deserves it. Yeah.
So for a song like that, do you start with the lyrics, like these are the things I want to say, and fit it into a melody, or what was the process?
No, sometimes it just happens. You know, it's like you play with chords and you play with ideas, and then one day it just all, the right chords hit the right melody, or whatever you feel comfortable with. It feels like natural that it all goes in that direction. And it's like anything, where the longer you do it, what feels forced, and you know what feels right.
So what kind of research?
Same thing happens with,
go on.
No, I'm just saying, like, it's the same thing with comedy, where you know when a joke is good, and you learn when a joke is not good.
Yeah. Very cool. So, Eric, about what are some of the things you're going to be doing in terms of your break? When is the break, actually?
After, in like 2 weeks, I'll stop the major touring and just, you know, kind of sit back and work on this new album.
When are you looking
that I'm raising money for? Well, November 14th starts the Pledge Music campaign, which is like Kickstarter. And I'll be trying to raise money for a month to make this album.
Okay.
And then, and then I probably should be out in early February.
Okay. So you know the direction of the album, how it's going to be? You know any of that?
Yeah, it's called Playing Cards.
Okay.
And it's a little more country than I've ever really done before. I'm recording it in Nashville with a producer who's been an acclaimed songwriter, Zach Malloy, who's in a band called the Nixons, and wrote songs for like Carrie Underwood and Blake Shelton and Shine Down and a lot of big hits.
So
he gets what I do, and
Okay, good.
I was saying he gets what I do.
Okay. So how did the more country influence? How did that come across, like, as being the next thing that you work on?
It's something that I don't know. It's like my folkier side comes out more country pop than it does folk. I always thought, like, oh, I'm a folky person because I'm holding an acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
And people are like, not so much.
So are you going to use this time? Okay, so you'll be working on the music. Where would you like your career to go next? I mean, would you see this as the ending of a chapter, the record? Taking a break from the tour?
I would say ending one chapter, opening another. And where do I see myself?
Yeah, where would you like it to go?
I'd like to be... The dream is to play, like, you know, again, with people like Ani and play those kind of venues, you know, a lot of theaters, stuff like that. Just having people connect to the music. But, I mean, I don't know. I'm still kind of dreaming about it.
Yeah.
When you fulfill a bunch of earlier dreams, it's like you can either stop dreaming or come up with new ones. So, and I guess those things aren't overnight. So I'm trying to keep dreaming.
Yeah. So I don't know much about Tulsa, Oklahoma. Is it more challenging, or is it challenging being there and having your music career, or does it not matter nowadays?
I think it's challenging in networking with people that I could network in a bigger city, you know, but at the same time, I think, you know, the internet makes it so much easier for people to get in touch with you but I still think that there's an element of you need to meet people when you can, and face-to-face is still always going to be better than just, hey, I met you on the internet.
Mm-hmm. So do people, when you tour, do they expect you to be a certain way from your songs that maybe... Because I think, okay, you can tell me if I'm wrong. It seems like your songs have a melancholy feel to them, or in the lyrically. Are you a melancholy person? Is that wrong? Am I right? Correct me.
Melancholy?
Yeah.
I wouldn't think I'm melancholy.
Or you're lyrically.
You think I'm
You're
melancholy.
Lyrically?
So people think I'm sad?
Mm-hmm. When they read your lyrics.
Am I sad? No, I'm not sad.
No. Well, no, but with your lyrics, like you're writing.
My lyrics are serious.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, I'm not a serious person all the time. So, of course, I'm doing comedy. So people get an idea of me in that way. Mm-hmm. So I hope, I hope that helps. But, no, I don't know. I think it was more like I was an out artist, and people thought like I was allowed to be grabbed and touched, and mm-hmm. I wanted the attention of like gay culture, mm-hmm. which I didn't. So I think that was tough, where people were like, "So do you dance?" And I'm like, "No." Do you know any Madonna? And, uh-huh. and it's like, no. So now I know Madonna, okay. But it was on my terms.
Because she's relatively new. So.
Yeah.
Great, Eric.
That's the idea.
Yeah. Well, great. Is there anything how can people reach you? What's your...
They can reach me through my website, erichyman.com, ERICHIMAN, and there'll be information about Pledge Music on it and how they can be part of this new album. And, yeah, just really excited about it and
very
curious to see what this next chapter holds. Thanks for having me on.
Sure. I thank you for being on here. And I enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed it, too. Thanks, Eric.
Oh, definitely. Thank you, boys. I appreciate you.
You're welcome. And that was my interview with Eric Himan. You can visit Eric online at erichyman.com, ERICHIMAN.com, as he mentioned. His latest album is called Gracefully, and you can check that out on his website also. As for me, talkmusictalk.com is where you'll find me, talkmusictalk.com. I can't speak. Or on social media at Instagram, which is my favorite social media, at This Is Boice. That's where you'll find me on Instagram. I would appreciate also if you guys would head on over to iTunes and show your appreciation. If you love the show, give me a 5-star rating, review it, say some nice things. All that would be appreciated. Till next time, this one's for you, Liz.